Hi, my name is Brad Cook. I am an associate professor of sociology at Georgia College in the Department of Government and Sociology. First of all, let me apologize for the makeshift studio here. The pandemic has limited the available options as my family are around the house. I've been teaching for about 16 years at the college level, and this is my 12th year teaching at Georgia College. I've been invited here to talk to you today about a course I teach called GC1Y 1000, Critical Thinking Social Problems. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a course I think worth talking about. I've taught 27 sections of this course over the past 10 years, and the course was developed in part during a workshop offered by Georgia College that I was very lucky to be a part of. The goals for the course start at the very kind of broad and work their way down. So first, all courses of the GC1Y 1000 ranking are critical thinking courses. Critical thinking is a term that's been fairly notoriously difficult to define. In general, when I use that term, what I mean is that we're trying to identify and question our assumptions, those things that we call common sense, and our biases. And we're trying to apply a systemic or systematic approach to understanding in our lives. And critical thinking encompasses all of that in our approach. I'm a sociologist, and sociology, I think, offers a unique toolkit for doing critical thinking. And I would argue that sociology is unique among the academic disciplines and the sciences in its ability to foster critical thinking. Essentially, sociology is critical thinking embodied. All of our lives are dominated by the social, our interaction with others around us. And so sociology can and does ask questions about everything. And so I think sociology is uniquely fitted to this task that we have of a course like this. In sociology, a regular course offering and a set of issues that we pursue are what are called social problems. And in this course, I ask the students to tackle three specific sets of social problems. We start with what we call poverty, but is an excuse to look at more broad economic inequality. We then transition into what we call sexism, although that term doesn't accurately capture really what we mean. Instead, we talk about gender and gender inequalities in that unit. And finally, we end thinking about racism. The course as I teach it has several innovations. First, it is what's known as a problem-based learning course. That approach is one that's relatively new in the scholarship of teaching and learning. Sociology is unique fertile ground for this approach because essentially what we do is based in problems. We look at those things in our social lives that are somehow off and wrong and feel like they have bad implications and outcomes. And so a problem-based learning approach fits really well with what sociology is. In practice, the problem-based learning approach identifies and solves a set of problems, and it forces students to engage in the kind of higher levels of learning that we think about. It's not just about memorizing facts and regurgitating ideas. Instead, it's about deeper analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Problem-based learning approaches are really good at facilitating that. The course is also innovative because it is group-based, and our social problems that we address are, by definition, by their nature, collective. And so it seems odd that we don't often approach those kinds of topics collectively. And so a group-based approach does that necessarily. Understanding and solving those problems has to be collective, and we do that in the class as we would mirror what would need to happen outside of the class. Even more than that, I found that even though students come to the course who are quite strong and some are developing still, that disconnect is not a limitation of the course in the group-based sense. Instead, strong students are given the opportunity to model for the weaker students how it is that they are more successful in what they do. And it's not just the strong students who are completely giving. Strong students are challenged by their peers to better articulate those ideas that they may have built into the assumptions about what it is they do and how they approach their coursework. Another part of this, of course, as group-based, means that the students are given the opportunity to give peer evaluations, to give feedback to one another. I have a series of steps to make sure that this is all blinded, so the students' feedback is always in a collective manner. It's in those the means and averages that I share with students, and I never identify students. It's always confidential, so the output is always anonymized. It's also not a popularity contest, and so you can imagine if Brad was in a class, the question is not, was Brad a neat guy? Do you like Brad? Is Brad cool? Instead, the questions that the students are asked to give feedback on are far more specific. So things like, did Brad show up for meetings? Did Brad complete the work? Did Brad help with the presentation and the paper? Did Brad contribute in this way? And so it's quite specific and is a source of then information that students can take in about those they're working with and then better tailor their own efforts within the groups that come later. The course design is such that I break down the course into 4 different units. We start with 3 substantive units. And so those are those 3 social problems that I mentioned at the top. The idea of economic inequality, of gender inequality, and finally racism. The goals of each one of those units are to do several things. So first, we ask, is it a social problem? And how do we know what that is? We ask about what the root causes of those social problems are. Where do they start? How do we get at the place where they begin? And then, of course, we think about the consequences. Why is it a problem? What is problematic about it in its consequences? Finally, the students take those things and they apply them. They analyze a current event that they choose from the New York Times. We use the New York Times because it's a paper of record, and it also is one that our campus has a relationship with, so students get access freely to the New York Times. The students then, in each of those units, end up with a group essay that they submit to me, as well as a group presentation that they give to the class. And so at the end of every unit, the class gets to learn not just about the things that they've been doing, but about something unique that each of the groups have been working on. So essentially, it's kind of like a civics lesson in action. They get these current events explained to them in a way that they might not have otherwise heard about or understood. Finally, we end the semester with a final unit on solutions. And so we ask, what's a possible solution? Knowing the root causes of these social problems that we've addressed already. We try to pinpoint those places that we can go down and prevent the problems from happening at the very beginning. Now, one way to think about it is now that we know what's wrong, how can we make it right? Sociology, admittedly, is historically kind of bad at this solution stuff. We're really good at the critical thing of pointing out and saying, hey, that's wrong, that's bad, you've got a problem here. Sociology hasn't been known, at least in the past, for offering up practical solutions to these things. That's changing, and this course offering is part of a way to correct that as well. So just like with the first substantive units, the final unit ends with a group essay and group presentations. And so once again, the class gets to learn not just from me, they learn from each other in seeing the diversity of the proposed solutions and the scope of those differences in terms of the ideas that students are presenting. So of course, the last couple semesters have been difficult and trying because of the pandemic, and so that's made for a few changes. So this semester, for example, I can't in good conscience have the students, at least so far, do any kind of group work. And that's one of those unrecognized consequences of the system policy. The university system limits us to doing the in-person education, but in-person means that the students can't actually get together to work on these things because of the social distancing that needs to take place. So I look forward in the future to actually having the students again, maybe in some virtual way, be able to take part in this. But that still has been limited because of the widespread illnesses and quarantining, which have made this kind of participation nearly impossible in the classroom so far this semester. Overall, though, I think this is a course that's challenging for the students, but it's not challenging in that sense of it being difficult. It may be difficult. I think it does ask the students to do a lot, but it's challenging in the sense that it's transformative. And we're actively upending the way that these young people see and engage in the world. And that's rewarding both for the students and for me as their professor, to get to see them change, the light bulbs go off, the eyes open. So thank you for your time today. I hope this was beneficial for all of you, and I look forward to fielding what questions you might have.